And this is the site of our next project. Whether or not that was a good idea, we're going to find out now. Yeah, that's quite a mess. Welcome to Retired for Life. I'm your host, Brian. I retired a few years ago after 30 years in a factory job as a machinist in a millwright. I needed to rediscover what life could really be like. When we purchased this property, the house had stood empty for over a year, and the property had been badly ravaged by poor logging practices. Since my retirement, I've been working to renovate the home and restore the surrounding forest to its natural beauty and attract wildlife back to the property. Join me as I learn about nature and working with wood to create the backdrop for this new chapter of our lives. Well, hello YouTube, and welcome back to Retired for Life. We've come down here to the site of Bowmore and the Road to Nowhere Trail, because this is where our next job is going to be. Now, we have had a ton of rain, so I'm curious to see how the trail down here is doing. This is the section that usually floods out, so let's have a look and see what kind of shape we're in. Well, our corduroy road is doing its job. Now, I dug this trench here to guide the water that's coming down from this hill to stop it from running down into the trail and under the corduroy road and that kind of thing. And it seems to be doing its job. Trail's not too bad here. Yeah, it's soft. And there's definitely water running down the creek here that we dug a couple of years ago. And we've got the pipe here. It seems to be really doing a good job. Yeah, that's great. Lots of water still running down to the swamp. This part of the trail has usually been washed out, just an absolute mess. So we dug this ditch down here last year to do the same thing, catch the water coming down the hill and try to channel it away before it actually just ends up soaking the trail. Yeah, and that's working pretty good. And this is the site of our next project. So before we do too much down here, I've got a couple of old bales of hay, or at least 1.5 old bales of hay. We're going to pull down here and spread around just to help compensate for the traffic that we're going to put down here right now. Well, this seems to be doing a good job. Yep. Pleased with that. All right, let's get this old hay down here and thrown on the trail. It is a little early for working on this part of the trail, but I want to do something different before we continue on with the siding. And there is this end of the trail where I can't get up Dragon's Back Hill right now because of that deep ditch that we've dug. So we need to build a bridge. Well, there we go. That should work pretty good. You know, it's not the perfect cover. It's not as good as wood chips, I don't believe, but this is going to help bind things together, and it's going to be full of seeds and stuff as well, so it will help vegetation return to the trail. And that's what we want. All right. Next, I need to figure this out. Got to take some measurements here and plan just what it is we're going to do. Oh, look at that thistle. Holy mackerel. Got to get rid of that. All right, let's get the tape measure out and we'll see if we can plan this out here. All right, things are good on this side of the ditch, but it really drops off here on that side. So I'm going to go ahead and make this the full 8 feet. And it looks like 7 feet wide should do it quite nicely. So 7 feet wide, 8 feet to cross it here. And I'll show you what this ditch is doing. So you can see right here that there is constant water running down here, and it was non-stop onto this trail, and it made this bottom of the trail completely flooded. So that's why we dug this ditch last year. So I need to do a little more excavating and probably transfer some of that soil over to the other side here to figure out how we're going to level that out, because we do need more soil over on that side. So as you guys may recall, I built the floor for Bowmore last fall as we were getting closer to winter. And I decided to throw a tarp over it to protect it for the winter. Whether or not that was a good idea, we're going to find out now. And of course there's quite the ant home here. They're not going to be happy with me. Well, it definitely needs to dry. And I'll probably give it a light sanding as well. And then put a little more deck stain on it. Again, whether or not this was a great idea, I really don't know. But I would say it looks like it held up quite well. Whether it would have been better without the cover, it's very hard to say. Because I don't have the experience to say. I just don't know. We'll let the ants evacuate and let this dry and see how it looks afterwards. All right, folks, I apologize for the wind noise, but anyway, there is basically the bottom of our bridge. I was going to go with just 3 6x6s, but I thought, you know, I believe in overkill, so we've got 4 on here. So this will be strong enough to drive the tractor over if I want to. So this is 7 feet wide here right now. I'm going to be putting 1x8 boards on the top of it, but it's going to sit on 2x8 pressure treated that's going to lay flat, just to keep the pine up out of the ground, to make the pine last as long as possible. So my next step here is to actually trim these down now to their 8-foot length. They are a bit long, and I want to get the trimming and everything done before I start treating these. So let's get these set up on the sawhorses one at a time, and we will get them cut to their finished length. All right, there's all 4 of our timbers squared up on the end. The steel MS-162 just fell through that. I mean, it's a fair size, but it's nice, dry. It's pine. The chain is sharp, so the MS-162 just made instant work of it. All right, now we have to figure out what we're going to do next. So these pine beams are going to sit at both ends on top of a 2x6. And I'm thinking I don't want to bury it because I want air circulating around it. So I do want it to dry after rain and that kind of thing, just to preserve it as much as possible. So what I think I'm going to try to do is kind of ramp up the 2 ends. So I'm going to leave about a 1-inch piece at the bottom and then come up so that I've got enough room to put an 8-inch board on that. And we'll see what it's like to cut this angle with the chainsaw. So we're going to try it with the DeWalt 20-volt max chainsaw because it's nice and light and it should be much easier to maneuver. So let's see how close we can get with this. Should be interesting. Yeah, it's getting messy. Yeah, that's quite a mess. It's interesting to try. I think the this chainsaw just isn't powerful enough. Okay, there's the angle we should have. All right, let's see what happens this time. That's working better. Yeah, that's pretty good. So what we'll do is we'll layer a good coating of roofing tar in there between the board and the beam. All right, we got a mess on the one end, but this end is good. So let's do the other 3 beams. All right, folks, we are back out here on a beautiful morning, our second day of bridge work. So we've got our main beams cut and shaped. Before I start treating them, I need to figure out how many planks that I'm going to need. So we're going to take a quick measurement here to figure that out. So for the ends, we're going to need 2 planks, and then we're basically every 9 inches from there, as I'm allowing 1 inch space between each plank. And so we need a total of 11 planks. So I'm going to need to squish my space between planks down to about 3/4 of an inch to make room to get full-size planks on without having to run them through the saw. So that's fine, easy to do. So to treat these, they are going to get coated in a mixture of diesel fuel and used engine oil. So I've done some research on the internet looking around to find what a good solution is for treating these timbers, and that's what I have found that seems to look like it would work pretty good. The diesel fuel will allow the engine oil to soak in that much deeper into the timbers. Now, I'm not spraying diesel fuel and engine oil around anywhere or anything like that. It's just going to get brushed straight on to these pieces. And then on the pieces that I attach, especially on the ends, these surfaces will get a coating of roofing tar as well. So that may sound like a lot of extra work to do, but compared to using my timbers from my sawmill to going to Home Depot or something like that and buying these things pressure treated, yeah, that's significant. So it's definitely worth doing. All right, so we have figured out what it is we need. Let's get our preservative mixed up, and we'll start coating these before we bring down the 11 8-inch wide planks that we need. All right, folks, so we have got our bridge beams coated for the first coating of the diesel fuel and motor oil combination, and that went pretty good. I used about 3/4 of a gallon to do these 4 beams, so it won't soak in quite as much for the next coating, but it still will soak in a fair bit, and that's good. That's what I want. I want this to really soak in a lot. So before we go too far here, I need to make a couple of sawhorses for working down at Bowmore. So I think that's going to be our next step. We're going to figure out how to make some reasonably heavy-duty sawhorses. Now, I've got an idea as to how to start it, and we'll just see what we can come up with. I want them to be stackable, and I want them to be strong. So we're going to take a break for lunch and then come back and see what we can figure out for that. The idea of this design, in my head anyway, is that you've got your 2x4s coming up, butting underneath here to support this, and your 2x4 legs are screwed in at the side here as well. So you've got 4 big long screws going into it. So you don't need the crossovers. And you've got a good strong sawhorse. And they'll be stackable. Because once you put the crossovers in them, you can't stack them. So I think I may add runners down low on the sides here. Seems to be pretty good. All right, let's put the other one together and then we'll see how they stack. All right, guys, let's see how stackable these are. Ha! I like it. Works nice. Okay, so we just have the supports put about 6 inches or so off the bottom, running lengthwise on it. And I think we'll put a few more screws into the legs. And then I think that'll be it. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. These can then get treated and go down to Bowmore, and that's where they'll stay. All right. Nice. All right, that'll be it for today. We'll get back to the bridge pieces tomorrow. All right, we'll see you in the morning. Well, good morning, folks. We had some rain last night, but not too much, fortunately. So as you recall, we treated our main beams here yesterday, and they are totally dry now, which is what we're looking for. We'll put a second coat on. And we made our new set of sawhorses that are going to stay down at Bowmore. Now, I've got one more thing to do. I'm going to add a support that goes along the bottom from one set of legs to the other on both sides. Now, one set I'll put on the inside, and the other set will be on the outside, so it doesn't interfere with these being able to stack. And the other thing that we have on the agenda for today is to get our boards down for the top of the bridge. Now, we've got 2 pieces of pressure treated 2x8s here. This is what the beams are going to sit on down there to help protect the beams. So we've got one at either end. So I need to cut these to length so that they are at the width of the bridge. Now, the bridge itself is going to be 7 feet wide. So I'm going to cut these to 7 feet 6 inches. So I've just got 6 inches to trim off of them, and then we'll treat the end here with our usual diesel fuel and motor oil treatment. And the other thing that I want to do is the boards that I'm going to put on top here are 1x8 boards. I'm going to put a 2x4 at either side of the bridge. So we need a couple of 2x4s down here as well. So we'll get all the planks and the 2x4s cut to length, get our pieces to help support the sawhorses in place, and get everything treated again. All right, let's go get our boards and get to work here. All right, folks, well, there is all our lumber set up. We've got our boards for the top. I've got a couple of rough ones in here that are still kind of live edge and whatnot, and that's fine. That's the perfect stuff for the top of this bridge because it's nothing fancy. It's down in the bush. So I've got my top boards. I've got my pressure treated boards there. My 2x4 railings. This is all cut to length. We've got our support beams sitting there, all 4 of them shaped and ready to go. And we've got our sawhorses in the back there that we still have a little bit of detail to finish up on and get all of this stuff treated and ready to go. All right, folks, we got all our parts for the bridge laid out here. So we've got to finish up with the oiling of these boards. Got to oil the ends of my 2x8s, and we've got our new sawhorses complete, but they still have to be oiled as well. But for now, they're being put to use holding up boards. So let's get this done, and then all these parts will be ready, and we can start transporting them down to the work site. Now, this is a messy business, so I do have my rubber boots on, and I will be putting my gloves on too to just try to keep some of the mess to a minimum. But, you know, as I say, it's a sloppy job. All right, let's get to it. All right, folks, there we go. All our pieces are ready, or at least they're all coated in our preservative anyway. So that's a good thing. They're going to sit here for a couple of days to let the oil and diesel fuel soak into them quite thoroughly. And then we can start taking them down. I still have to treat the sawhorses, but that's no great urgency. I will get to that after I get this lumber down to the Road to Nowhere trail, to our bridge building site. So I'm pleased with this. This turned out quite well. We've got a good start by having all our components ready. So the next step here is to get back down to the site where the bridge is going to go and work on the foundation for the bridge. We've got a little bit of leveling work we got to do. Got to bring some rocks in to put on either side of the ditch that this thing is going to go across. I want to put the rocks in so I don't have to worry about that part of the ditch filling in over the years. With the rocks will help hold the bank in place and that kind of thing. And we do have lots of rocks around. And the foundation for the bridge needs to be leveled out too. So that's going to take some serious work because it does drop off fairly good on the far side of the bridge. So we got a lot of rocks and earth that we've got to move in there. All right, folks, I think that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you have found this interesting or maybe a little bit entertaining. So if you got any thoughts, comments, suggestions, let me know. I love hearing from you, and I always get back to everybody that comments. So remember to stay safe out there, folks. Be good to each other, and we will see you out on the trails the next time. Be interesting to see how well this works as a preservative on these pine pieces.
Sweet like wine, got honey on her tongue. One hand on a bottle, she got one hand on a gun. She squeezed that trigger, you as good as done. I should be running from you, darling, now to kingdom come. Cause my mother told me as a child, boy, don't play around with fire, cause you might just end up getting burned. And I know the wicked never rest, so I always try my best, but there's some lessons taking all my money, but I make it rain like 24/7. If it mean a little time with you, break my heart and leave me hurt. The next one just gon' do me worse. So if they all no good, I'll just be bad with you.